Alright, what up, though? We back here talking about the Seminoles, Indians of Florida, aka your gulae, your Geechee, your Zuwala, your Shara, your Sarah. You know what I'm saying? We back at it. So the Mikosukes were first into an alliance with the Seminoles and were consequently driven with them into South Florida. However, the Mikosukes held themselves superior to the Seminoles and as prisoners of war refused to accept food issued along with that to the Seminoles. This this distinction had been maintained to a degree in separate tribal settlements of the Seminoles now in South Florida. The Mikosukes, from whom the Seminoles broke away, were probably distant relation to the Mayans. They settled to the westward and in a time broke across the settlement of the Mayas, who were undoubtedly the mound builders, taking possession of the middle Georgia to the Atlantic coast. And the Gulf of there are ocean currents that probably made a course of respective settlement from its southwest coast. The Mayas came with the current that sets from the coast of Mexico to within a few miles of the Florida coast, where it either joins the outflowing Gulf Stream or at the time joins a current following northwards and westwards and north into the entrance of Mobile Bay. The Mayas evidently crossed the counter current and made a landing about the mouth of the Swanee River. On the other days, the Mikosukis, ancestors of the Muskokees, probably followed counter currents to the coast of Alabama and westward. The original Indian town of Ocala was near the mouth of the Swanee River, and its meaning of the house settlement of the spirit of the fathers of the ancestors that now become spirits. The most prominent of the Seminole chiefs of the early days was Kofi, who lived in the Alachua Sinks or Paynes prairies at the time of Bartman's visit to the Florida 1774. His name had been understood to mean cowkeeper, confused with Suka, but in reality it means sun spirit in the high crescent moon eclipse. It's also goes like cow tom and different ones like that. Okay, so the Indians found here at the early explorers Navarro and De Soto were evidently descendants of the Maya immigrants from Yucatan. Some of them, as for example the Appalachians, can be traced by the name of the headwaters of the Ganare streams of the Orinoco rivers of South America. The original Indians lived between the Achaquila and the Apalachicola River took the name of Mikosukis. Following De Soto's expedition, that is, the except a remnant of the retained the name of Appalachians and lived near the mouth of the Apalachicola River, a band of some 14 beginning all that were left when the forced migration to the west was made by the U.S. government following the early Indian War of 1835 to 1842. The Mikosukis assumed the name as meaning chief of the Hall clan. Primitive people generally adopted tribal names of some of the esteemed animals of their residential location. This was the case in existence of Vasco Porcalo, an officer of the expedition of De Soto, contributed to the 13 hogs from his estate in Cuba. These were landed at the near St. Mark's and were carried with the army until the designated after leaving what are the present confines of Florida. Many of the hogs must have strayed in foraging and living, so to become a progenitors of the Florida Razorbacks. The name of a fraternity, Mikosuke, denotes Miko chiefs and the Suka hogs. Miko itself is from the Ma, the mother, to whom those Indians trace descent. The Ak, the spirit, the Ka, the Ku, the heart conditioning with the breath, as life force of the follows synthetically and principles, as also the principles of the chief elements of creation. The Suka is from the suar, the son of the ka, is the life and the mind of the lichen, to the flight of a bird in the case applied to the exhalation of breath, and the calling of the understood of the supplication to the sun by the animal, specifically in the lowing of a buffalo or a domestic cattle and extending in the application to hogs. The mikosukees were to interpret to permit that the migrations of the Seminoles through their territory. So the course of invasion was eastward along the upland, even since being called the Trail Ridge, running southwards between Jacksonville, McCleany, and miles east of the latter town. Crossing State Highway Number 1, the Seminoles, following their invasion, became dominant in the territory to the east and southward of the Mikosukees of the Indian War of 1835. So then we come in to the first recorded description of the Southeast Native Americans. The Italian explorer Giovanni di Verrazzano, in the service of the King Francis I of France, started in 1520, that they go entirely naked except about their loins, and they wear the skins of small animals like martens fastened by a girdle and planted grass, to which they tie all around their bodies, and tails of other animals hanging down to their knees. The complexion of these people is black, not much different than that of the Ethiopians. Their hair is black and thick and not very long. It is tied back behind their head like a small tail. And for the physique of these men, they are well proportioned and medium height and a little taller than we are. They have broad chests, strong arms, and the legs are often, and other parts of the body are well composed. There is nothing else except that they tend to be broad in the face. They have big black eyes and alternate the open look that they have, a sharp cunning and an agile swift runners. So then we swing over to Williams and Mary Quarterly and the new laws before the Castilians would cease to equate in the category of Indio with a permanent bondage when it became clear to Charles V resistance to the implementation of the new law in the Spanish Americas would be formidable. He decided to begin at home in Castile and Seville. Inspections that occurred in 1543 and 1549 resulted in more than 100 indigenous slaves being freed, and a plethora of lawsuits that ensured, generally initiated by the distinguished slave owners, witness, especially those of indigenous heritage, pointed to the period of transformative, although Indio justifiably feared the repercussions of stepping forward to petition for their freedom. Many did so, and the word spread quickly among the Indios living throughout Castile, but it was rarely easy and straightforward, and litigants were beaten, branded, and sold. These stakes were high for both masters and slaves. Thus, the courtroom became a site where Indios and masters purposefully manipulated descriptive psychonomic categories, abstract notions of belonging in their attempts to fix Indios as a perpetual slave or to liberate them from decades of bondage. Determining their status was really straightforward, and it took years of protective legislations to be implemented seriously and systematically in Castile. Faced with the increasing levels of restriction after 1542, slave owners in Castile developed two strategies that aided in identifying their Indios as slaves. The first was to argue that their Indio slaves did not in fact originate from the domain under the control of the Indies, of the ocean, of the sea, of the kings of Spain, rather that they were Portuguese vassals who were by law still considered slaves even after the political unification of the Iberian Peninsula in 1580. The second line of attack was to emphasize the lineage of the slaves over his or her place of birth, naturalizia. This meant that in some cases, Indio litigants were being asked to prove that their mothers were not of Moorish or North or West African heritage because slave owners generally did not have documents to prove the slaves had been captured in just war. And as we see, this went on till today. The same tribes in the same southeast area. It's being said, oh, you got bushy hair, oh, you got dark skin, prove that you're not African. And here we are today, man. Come on, y'all, we got to do better. I'm going to tap in with some more drop later.